We're going to be going now to Deuteronomy 9. And so here we go. Deuteronomy 9. All right. Hear, O Yasharal, you go this day to cross the Jordan to inherit nations greater and stronger than yourselves. Cities great and walled up to heaven. Well, that sounds a little familiar.
Yeah.
Huh. Where was there a tower that reached up to heaven? And I like how Caleb's paraphrases it here. He says, great and fortified to the height of heaven. So definitely gives an idea that it's talking about something structured similar to the Tower of Babel. And then verse 2 here. So, and we're going to go to some cross references after I read this chapter. A people great and many and tall, the sons of Anak, whom you know and concerning whom you have heard say, who can stand before the children of Anak? Where have we heard a similar phrase like that before? Who is like the beast? Who can make war with him? Yeah, and so actually the Onkelos paraphrases again, instead of sons of Anak, it says sons of the giants. So we know for a fact they're, giants. Okay. You shall know today that Yahuwah your Elohim, he shall go before your face. He is a consuming fire.
There you go.
What I find interesting here is the Targum here says the word of Yahuwah is a burning fire. It actually says that the word of Yahuwah, your Elohim, he it is that goes before you. He who is a burning fire, he will consume them. He will break them down before you, which, by the way, goes along with Isaiah 11. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 11 verse 5 or verse 6 says that it's a prophecy about the Messiah, that he will consume the lawless one with the breath of his mouth, which, by the way, Paul quotes from Isaiah 11 in 2 Thessalonians when he says that. He's actually word for word quoting from Isaiah. So he will break them down before you. You will soon drive them out as Yahuwah told you. Speak not in your heart when Yahuwah your Elohim has destroyed these nations before your face, saying, for my righteousness Yahuwah brought me into this Tob land. Okay, so see here. Just write this down. I want to make a little mental note, or a physical note actually, of when that verse had the word of Yahuwah there. Let's see here. I think that was verse 3. The word of Yahuwah is a consuming fire. Consuming fire. All right. Back down to verse 5, I think we're at chapter 9. You shall not therefore speak in your heart when Yahuwah your Elohim has broken them before you, saying, for the sake of my righteousness has Yahuwah brought me in to inherit this Tob land, but the wickedness of these nations Yahuwah drove them out from before you. And it's also in the Septuagint, it's just that the Septuagint breaks it into the 5th verse, just FYI. So it's both there in both versions. Yahuwah will destroy them off from before you. Okay, so set apartness of your heart, do you go in to inherit their land, but because of the wickedness of these nations, Yahuwah will drive them from before you, that he may establish, whoops. I hate it when it does that. It skips ahead too much. It's so annoying. I don't know why it does that. Okay. Not for your righteousness, for your set apartness of your heart does you go into inherit the land. But because of the wickedness of these nations, Yahuwah will drive them from before you, and he may establish the covenant which Yahuwah swore to our fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you shall know today that it is not for your righteousness Yahuwah your Elohim gives you this Tov land to inherit, for you are a stiff-necked people. Remember, forget not how much you provoked Yahuwah your Elohim in the wilderness, from the day that you came forth out of Egypt, even till you came into this place, you continue to be disobedient toward Yahuwah. Also in Horeb, you provoked Yahuwah, and Yahuwah was angry with you to destroy you. And when I went up into the mountain to receive the tables of stone, the tables of the covenant, which Yahuwah made with you, I was in the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. I ate no bread and drank no water. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to look at something real quick.
40 days and 40 nights, no bread or water.
Yeah. But notice what's taking place during those 40 days and 40 nights. Obviously, I wouldn't say that's normal for a regular person to be doing.
Yeah.
He's in his presence for 40 days, 40 nights physically, and Yahuwah is giving him the law. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's actually like you could say a miracle type of thing that he's able to survive that long without bread and water. I probably wouldn't be attempting that. I would first want to at least get a fasting at least for a couple of weeks before I start doing 40 days. But let me just see here. Okay, just see if there's anything I missed. All right, so we're up to verse 10, I believe. Okay. All right. Okay, verse 10. And Yahuwah gave me the 2 tables of stone written with the finger of Elohim, or the finger of Yahuwah, it probably should say here. And on them there had been written all the words which Yahuwah spoke to you in the mountain in the day of the assembly. And it came to pass after 40 years, and 40 days and 40 nights, Yahuwah gave me the 2 tables of stone, the tables of the covenant. Okay. And Yahuwah said to me, arise, go down quickly from here. For your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have transgressed. They have gone aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them, and have made themselves a molten image. It's kind of like, you know, how you got mom and dad, and like you start saying, go to your child over there. That ain't my child. That's kind of like how Yahuwah is right now. He's like, I don't want to claim ownership of them. That's your people.
That's your son.
So it's kind of funny. Those of us that can relate. And Yahuwah spoke to me, saying, I have spoken to you once and again, saying, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. And now suffer me utterly to destroy them. And by the way, suffer is like an old British term. It means allow, to utterly destroy them, and I will blot out their name from under heaven, and I will make of you a great nation, as strong and more numerous than this. And I turned and went down from the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire to heaven. And the 2 tables of the witnesses were in my 2 hands. And when I saw that you had sinned against Yahuwah your Elohim, and have made to yourselves a molten image, and have gone astray out of the way which Yahuwah commanded you to keep, then I took hold of the 2 tables and cast them out of my 2 hands and broke them before you. And I made my petition before Yahuwah, as also at the first 40 days and 40 nights I bread and drank no water, on account of all of your sins, which you have sinned in doing evil before Yahuwah, Elohim to provoke him. And I was greatly terrified because of the wrath and anger, because Yahuwah was provoked with you utterly to destroy you, yet Yahuwah hearkened to me at this time also. And he was angry with Aaron to destroy him utterly, and I prayed for Aaron also at that time. And your sin, which you have made, even the calf, I took and burnt it with fire and pounded it and ground it down till it became fine and it became like dust. And I cast the dust into the brook that descended from the mountain. Also in the burning and in temptation and at the graves of lust you provoked Yahuwah. Okay, interesting enough, the Samaritan Pentateuch is a little bit more specific here. It says provoked him to wrath. And when Yahuwah sent you forth from Kadesh Barnea, saying, go up and inherit the land which I gave to you, then you disobeyed the word of Yahuwah, your Elohim. Interesting. Both versions actually say that. It's kind of funny that the odd man out there is the Samaritan Pentateuch. They reword it as commandment of Yahuwah. I guess they don't like the oneness there. Yeah, so they got to change it a little bit. But the Septuagint says the word of Yahuwah your Elohim. So does the Targum Onkelos. So both of them are calling the Son their Elohim. Yahusha their Elohim. Okay. And believed him not and hearkened not to his voice. And so I just want to make a little note of that. So 923 LXX and Onkelos agree on the word. Your Elohim. Okay. All right. You were disobedient to things related to Yahuwah from the day in which he became known to you. And I prayed before Yahuwah 40 days and 40 nights, the number that I prayed before. For Yahuwah said that he would utterly destroy you. Okay. And I prayed to Elua and said, oh, Yahuwah, King of mighty ones. And we're going to address that, why he's calling him that, and the historical context of that. If you research other religions, why Masha would be making a point to say that. Destroy not your people and your inheritance, whom you did redeem, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt. Interesting. So the other versions don't have King of mighty ones. That's interesting. I don't know. That's not good. That's a little weird. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. Whom you did redeem, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with the great power and with your strong hand and with your high arm. Remember, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, your servant, to whom you swore by yourself, look not upon the hardness of the heart of this people and their irreverence and their sins, lest the inhabitants of the land where you brought us out speak, saying, because Yahuwah could not bring them into the land in which he spoke to them, and because he hated them, he has brought them forth to slay them in the wilderness. So looks like we got the last verse here. And these are your people and your portion, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with your strength and your mighty arm and with your high arm. Again, what is this, like the fifth time so far in our Deuteronomy portions talking about Yahusha, the right hand, the high arm? Okay. Let's see here. So before we go to chapter 10, I want to look at something really quick. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So just see something. I had something written down from verse 26. I just want to look at it real quick. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we can go to the next chapter here. There's not much else here to talk about. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 10. Okay, here we go. Chapter 10. Oh, actually, before that, I did want to talk about a couple things from chapter 9. I wanted to go back up to, what was it, verse 1, talk about walled cities that reach up to heaven. Okay, I wanted to show you guys what I meant by it's similar to the Tower of Babel situation. So let's go there real quick to Genesis 11. Genesis 11, and show you that the whole purpose of the Tower of Babel was to reach up into heaven. Let's see here, okay. Come, let us make bricks, starting at verse 3 here. Notice how verse 2 says they found a plain. This is why I believe it's not a Tower of Pisa, the Tower of Babel, because it had nothing to do with height, okay, because they're in a plain, okay. They to build that in a plain kind of would not make sense at all. To what traditionally is rendered as what the Tower of Babel looks like would make no sense. I believe it was a ziggurat. It was like some type of portal type of building that some type of technology they had from the Watchers from the pre-flood era that they knew about, that they could create a ziggurat that somehow would be like a gateway into the heavenly dimensions somehow, like the heavenly world rather than the earthly realm. So it says they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And a man said to his neighbor, come, let us make bricks and bake them with fire. And the brick was to them for stone, and their mortar was bitumen. They said, come us, let us build to ourselves a city and tower whose top shall be to heaven. Interesting. Doesn't say reach. It says its top shall be to heaven. Interesting. Let us make to ourselves a name before we are scattered abroad upon the face of all the earth. And then obviously we know the rest of the story. Yahusha, comes down to disperse the languages. We know all about that, but it's kind of interesting that it's similar to Deuteronomy 9:1 that says these walled cities reached up to heaven or were up to heaven. Okay, so to me, that's kind of interesting there. There's a parallel between Babel and the sons of Anak there, and that's not the only parallel you have here. If we go to Deuteronomy 9:2 here, it says that which is said of the sons of Anak, who know as many as tall the sons of Anak, whom you know and concerning whom you have heard say, who can stand before the children of Anak? Now, if we go to Revelations, there's a very similar phrase that they use for the beast. Revelations 13:16. Let me see here. Or is that the right verse there? Who is like the beast who can make war with him? What verse is that? Oh, come on. All right. Let's see here. Who is like all right, let's go to Blue Letter Bible here. Oh, Revelations 13, verse 4. Okay, so here's the cross-reference with Deuteronomy 9:2 and Revelations 13:4. And they worship the dragon that gives authority to the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with it or with him? So again, it's like a same type of phrasing. What's interesting to note is if you understand who the beast, this first beast actually is, it kind of makes sense why the Anakim giants there's a parallel spiritually between them and him. Nimrod, from what I've studied, seems to be the end times beast. So for it to be saying who is like him, who is able to make war with him, and saying the same thing about the Anakim, there seems to be a connection there, some type of way, some form or way, which is interesting because the Anakim were giants and so was Nimrod. Nimrod began to be a giant in Genesis 10:8 of the Septuagint. So I find it kind of interesting that this type of phrasing is very similar in Revelations 13 verse 4 and Deuteronomy 9 verse 2. Okay, so now I think we're going to move on. Also, what verse was it talks about Yahuwah is king of the Elohim? I just want to mention the historical importance to that, because there is a key importance to that title here. Let's see here.
9:25, Brother Doug.
Oh, thank you, Brother Joshua. Thank you. So 9:25 says, I prayed for us. Oh, here we go.
Verse 26.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Yeah. So Yahuwah is being called king of the deities. Why is he being called that? Well, in Greek mythology, the Greeks replaced Yahuwah with Zeus. And if you follow their religion, that's a title they give to Zeus. So what the author of the Septuagint is doing is translating from this Paleo-Hebrew Torah here, and he's showing that it seems like originally Masha had this phrase in the verse that was later on taken out as a way to kind of stick it to these false deities and saying, no, Zeus is not the king of the Elohim, Yahuwah is. And so I just find that interesting. Most versions of that verse completely omit that phrase, king of the mighty ones. Just find that interesting. And you can find this in multiple times in the Tanakh, though. I think the Masoretic has it in Daniel where he's called king of the gods or mighty one of mighty ones. All right, so anyway, so that's, I really feel like if this was originally in there, which the Septuagint is hinting this phrase was originally in the verse, that means Masha, being led by the set-apart spirit, is actually poking fun at these other religions. He's actually saying, yeah, you guys try to replace Yahuwah, you try to use replacement theology. Yahuwah is the real king of the mighty ones. So I find that interesting. Anyway, so just thought I would mention that. All right, so chapter 10 of Deuteronomy. At that time, Yahuwah said to me, hew for yourself 2 stone tables as the first. Come unto me into the mountain, and you shall make for yourself an ark of wood. And you shall write upon the tables the words which were on the first tables, which you did break. You shall put them into the ark. So I made an ark of boards, incorruptible wood, and I hewed tablets of stone like the first. And I went up to the mountain, and the 2 tables were in my hand. And he wrote upon the tables according to the first writing, the 10 commands which Yahuwah spoke to you in the mountain out of the midst of the fire. And Yahuwah gave them to me. And I turned and came down from the mountain. And I put the tables into the ark which I had made, and there they were as Yahuwah commanded me. And the children of Yasharal departed from Berioth of the sons of Yakim to Mizadeh. There Aaron died, and there he was buried, and Eleazar his son was priest in his stead. There they departed to this is funny. This is hilarious, this name here. God. They departed to God, to Atet Batha, a land wherein are torrents of water. Interesting. Okay, and of course, there's like a little bit of extra in the Pentateuch here. Okay, interesting. At that time, Yahuwah separated the tribe of Levi to bear the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, to stand near before Yahuwah, to minister in Barak in his name to this day. Notice how it says they are to Barak in his name. And remember what we talked about in Numbers chapter 6, the context of the Aaronic Baraka is strictly for the Levites. So this is another witness here in Deuteronomy 10:8. They are to Barak in his name. Okay. Therefore, the Levites have no part nor inheritance among their brothers, who himself is their inheritance, as he said to them. And I remained in the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, and Yahuwah heard me at the time also, and Yahuwah would not destroy you. And Yahuwah said to me, go set out before this people and let them go in and inherit the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. And now, Yasharal, what does Yahuwah your Elohim require of you? Now, this is kind of, it reminds me of another verse in the Tanakh. What is it, Habakkuk or something? Where it talks about to walk humbly with your Elohim. And obviously to walk humbly does not mean to fast. So that's just another instance of the ridiculousness, trying to compare the two as one and the same. But anyway, but anyway, I just found it interesting because this is the same wording as that verse from Habakkuk or Nahum. And now, Yasharal, what does Yahuwah your Elohim require of you but to fear Yahuwah your Elohim and to walk in all his ways and to love him and to serve Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your spirit? By the way, this is what gets confusing, and this is the difference between the Greek mindset and the Hebrew mindset. And this is something we need to understand. Where it says soul in your English translations, it's not referring to nefesh all the time. Sometimes it is translated from nefesh as soul, and sometimes it's ruach. This is where it gets really tricky. The Septuagint has a legitimate word that means spirit, and it's not meaning soul at all. So a lot of the times where it says soul in the English, that's a mistranslation. It should actually say spirit, just FYI. Okay, so that's just something to keep an eye on. Nefesh and ruach are two different words. They don't mean the same thing. They're not the same thing. A spirit and a body make a nefesh. So obviously nefesh can't be a spirit. So to keep the commandments of Yahuwah your Elohim and his ordinances all the day I charge you today, that it might be well with you. Behold, heaven and earth, or behold, the heaven and heaven of heavens belong to Yahuwah your Elohim, the earth and all that is in it. Only Yahuwah only chose your fathers to love them, and he chose out of their seed after them, even you beyond all nations as at this day. To fully understand this concept here, you have to understand the divine counsel of Psalms 82 and Deuteronomy 32:8 in the Septuagint. So I would recommend you, if you're a little confused by this very exclusivity of Yahuwah's character right here in verse 15, I would suggest you watch our video that's called Are Humans Lesser Mighty Ones? And that deals with the false interpretations of Psalms 82 and not fully understanding the divine counsel of Yahuwah, and that Yahuwah set principalities over the Gentiles who rejected him. And he chose one nation to be his nation out of all the 70 nations that came from the Tower of Babel. So anyway, so just thought I would explain that. Therefore, you shall circumcise the hardness of your heart. You shall not harden your neck. And this is the biggest problem in the New Testament when Yahushua is talking to the Pharisees. Pharisees are like, oh, we are circumcised. Yeah, but their hearts aren't. It's not just a physical circumcision. If your heart is not circumcised, it makes no difference. So that's what Yahushua was dealing with the Pharisees, Sadducees, and his ethnic brethren of that day, is that the majority of them had hardened hearts. For Yahuwah your Elohim, he is, here we go, the Elohim of mighty ones, or mighty one of mighty ones, and the master of masters. Oneness alert, master of masters. Okay. In Revelations, what do you remember what chapter it is, Mom? When is Yahushua called King of Kings and Master of Masters?
Oh, I think it's probably towards the end, maybe 20 or 21.
I think it's 19. I'm just not remembering the exact verse. It's probably 19 verse 16 to 17, I'm thinking, possibly, where it says that his name, he had a name written on his thigh.
Mm-hmm.
It was Kings of Kings, Master of Masters. So whoever can find that, just let me know and I'll stop to give the cross reference.
It's down here on
Okay, so
16, I think, on his robe and on his thigh.
Okay.
He has his name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
All right, so that's Revelations 19:16 and Deuteronomy 10:17. So you have the Father and the Son being called Master of Masters. Okay. All right, so here we go. The great and strong and terrible Elohim, who does not accept persons, meaning Yahuwah does not take bribes. Okay. Nor will he by any means accept a bribe. There you go, confirmation right there. Executing right ruling for the stranger, the orphan and widow, and he loves the stranger to give him food and raiment. And you shall love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall fear Yahuwah your Elohim, and shall serve him, and shall cleave to him, and shall swear by his name. He is your boast, he is your Elohim, who has worked in the midst of you these great and esteemed things which your eyes have seen. With 70 souls, and this is where it gets really weird in the Masoretic. It will say 70 here, but then there's other places in the Torah where it doesn't say 70. So it's like really weird in the Masoretic. There's like a historical contradiction for some reason. With 70 souls, 70 people, your fathers went down into Egypt, but Yahuwah your Elohim has made you as the stars of heaven in multitude. You know what's interesting about this too? There's a parallel between this and Deuteronomy 32:8 to 9 that I would like to just share really quick for everyone, since we're actually at the end of chapter 10 anyway, going into chapter 11. It's interesting, the number 70 is parallels with the angels of Deuteronomy 32:8 in the Targum, and I want to show you what I'm talking about here. Seems like that Yahuwah's initial plan is for us, obviously, to be like the angels, and we would actually inherit the nations eventually, according to the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan here. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. But instead of the sons of Israel, as it says in that verse in your Masoretic Bible, this actually says he numbered the nations who were separated at the Tower of Babel according to the number of his angels, 70. So it's a pretty interesting parallel here. It's pretty interesting. So I want to just read this whole verse here just to show you the context of what I'm talking about here. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Go ahead, Joshua.
Your screen is not sharing. It's still way back on Revelation 13.
Oh, thank you for letting me know that. I don't know. This stupid shared screen does that half the time. All right. Hopefully it's showing it now. All right. So 27, I need to go to 32. All right. And this is my Kindle version of the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan. So let's see here. Come on. 32, come on. Just takes forever with these digital versions to get to the right page. There we go. Deuteronomy 32:8, according to the Targum. of Pseudo-Jonathan. When the Most High made allotment of the world unto the nations which proceeded from the sons of Noah in the separation of writings and languages, aka Tower of Babel, of the children of men at the time of division, he casted the lot from among the 70 angels, the princes, principalities of the nations, which whom is a revelation to oversee the city. Even at that time, he established the limits of the nations according to the sum of the number of the 70 souls of Israel who went down into Egypt. So what's interesting here is the Targum of Pseudo-Jonathan is actually agreeing in the first part of that expansion there of the verse in Deuteronomy 32:8. It's actually agreeing with the Septuagint. He didn't give the nations right away to the sons of Israel, as the Masoretic text would have you believe, but he actually gave it to the 70 principalities, and eventually it's going to be given to the children of Yasharal, if that makes any sense. Go ahead, Joshua.
That whole I just find that the whole 70 and 12, just two numbers that keep repeating. I just find it very interesting. So I'm kind of glad you touched on it. But you see that whole you see 70 elders out of the 12 tribes. You see those 70 souls going into Egypt out of 12 tribes. Out of the 12 tribes of the sons of Yaakov. I think that if you end up counting Jacob himself, then it ends up being a little bit more than 70. I think the 70 is just counting the tribes. I could be wrong on that. But the whole 70 and 12, you see the 70 elders out of the 12 tribes. You see the 12 apostles, but then you also see 70 other disciples sent out. Seems to be a repeating theme.
Yeah, it's very interesting, like to your point. There's a parallel I see here from the way the Pseudo-Jonathan expounds it in that verse. There's a parallel between the 70 angels and the 70 sons of Israel or Yasharal coming from Egypt that is mentioned in Deuteronomy 10 too. So there's like a interesting parallel, and even Yahusha and Matthew says in the resurrection we will be like the angels. So maybe that's always been Yahuwah's plan, is like, okay, I'm going to allow these, these principalities who eventually rebel against me, according to Psalms 82, they're going to have possession of the nations, whatever, but eventually my children are going to be like angels and take rule from them. Because we know Paul even says we will judge the angels. Obviously, we're judging bad angels. We're not judging good angels. So it seems like that you could say that position of power is getting switched in the end, and no longer will these rebellious principalities have rule over these countries that we see today. Very interesting. It's a very interesting topic that we kind of don't see that because we have a preconceived disposition about who Psalms 82 are talking about, unfortunately. That's why we don't see it. But another thing I find interesting before we move on and go to chapter 11, FYI, Pseudo-Jonathan, whoever wrote this Targum, does not believe Michael and Yahusha are the same person. Just thought I would mention it because in the next verse of Deuteronomy 32, it says here, when the set-apart people fell to the lot of Yahuwah, meaning Yahuwah got possession of that one nation versus the 70, it says, Michael opened his lips and said, let the toe portion of the name of Yahuwah's word be with him. So it's actually separating Michael and Yahusha. They're not the same person, which I find interesting. Gabriel opened his lips with thanksgivings and said, let the house of Jacob or Yakub be the lot of his inheritance. So again, a historical expounding here by this Pseudo-Jonathan Targum of the Torah. So I just find it interesting. They even understand Michael and Yahusha are not the same person. So I just find that interesting. Whether they realize the word of Yahuwah is Yahusha or not, that's a whole nother ballgame. But they do realize the word of Yahuwah and Michael are not the same entity. So just thought I would put that out there. So it's very interesting. Might make a little note of that to do a little debunking of that false doctrine of Jehovah Witnesses someday. So anyway, moving on. So we're going to go to chapter 11 of Deuteronomy. Okay. Let me just fix my shared screen here. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to go to chapter 11 now of Deuteronomy. Therefore, you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim and shall observe his appointments and his ordinances and his commandments always. And you shall know this day, for I speak not to your children who know not and have not seen the discipline of Yahuwah your Elohim and wonderful works in his strong hand and his high arm and his miracles and his wonders, which he worked in the midst of Egypt on Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all his land, and what he did to the army of the Egyptians and to their chariots and their cavalry and their army, how he made the water of the Red Sea to overwhelm the face of them as they pursued after you. And Yahuwah destroyed them unto this day. And all the things which he did to you in the wilderness until you came into this place, and all the things that he did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, whom the earth opening her mouth swallowed up, and their houses and tents and all their substance that was with them in the midst of Yasharal. For your eyes have seen all the mighty works of Yahuwah, which he worked among you. Today you shall keep all his commandments, and as many as I command you today, that you may live and be multiplied, that you may go in the land and inherit the land into which you go across the Jordan to inherit it, that you may live long upon the land which Yahuwah swore to your fathers to give to them and to their seed after them, a land flowing with milk and honey. For the land into which you go to inherit it is not as the land of Egypt where you came out. Whensoever they sow the seed, water it with their feet as a garden of herbs. But the land into which you go to inherit it is a land of mountains and plains. It shall drink the water of the rain of heaven. The land which Yahuwah your Elohim surveys continually, the eyes of Yahuwah your Elohim are upon it, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Now, if you will indeed hearken to the commands which I charge you this day, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, and to serve him with all your heart, with all your spirit, then he shall give to your land the early and latter rain in his season, and you shall bring in your grain and your wine and your oil. Okay. He shall give food in your fields to your cattle when you have eaten in full. Take heed to yourself that your heart be not puffed up, and you transgress and serve other mighty ones and worship them. And Yahuwah be angry with you and restrain the heaven. And there shall not be rain, and earth shall not yield its fruit, and you shall perish quickly from off the Tob land, which Yahuwah has given you. And you shall store these words in your heart and in your soul. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and it shall be fixed between your eyes. By the way, this is spiritual. This is not physical. So when you see like in rabbinical Judaism, they're like putting a box on their forehead that have scriptures in it, and that's a rabbinical misinterpretation of this verse. When it says a sign, right there, it's telling you it's not physical. Okay, it's a sign between your eyes. It's a sign on your forehead. It's not literally on top of your forehead. Unfortunately, the rabbinical Judaism and even the Targums, unfortunately, they put tephilim here, which is a rabbinical understanding, unfortunately. And that's why you got to keep your eyes on the Targums here, because sometimes they try to put rabbinical nonsense in there with certain commandments. Yep, go ahead, Joshua.
Would you say that a good, correct me if I'm wrong, but would you say that a good interpretation of having it constantly before your eyes and as a sign constantly on your hand, I butchered that, I paraphrased that badly, but Would you say that a good understanding of that would be one that we're always to be meditating on his word, to have his word in front of us to be meditating on it, but that to have it as a sign upon your hand would imply the doing of his word, being doers of word, action.
Yeah. What it's a lot of times spiritually, a hand means something that you're putting your actions to. So, like for example, this same language is used in Revelations, right? For the mark of the beast. The same language is used in Ezekiel when it's a sign of those that are what is it? They're lamenting that his law is being broken in the book of Ezekiel, right? That's a sign. That's a mark. So to add to Brother Joshua's point, there's 2 or 3 witnesses in the canon alone that this is allegorical. This is referring to meditating on his word, not just meditating and putting actions to doing it, but actually mourning at people transgressing his word, if that makes any sense. That's what Ezekiel says. That's what the sign was. It was the action of them lamenting to see nothing but lawless people in that land at that point in time. And many times you'll see that in the Psalms. David in the Psalms talks about, isn't there a verse, Mom, in Psalms where it says, I've cried because I see people breaking your Torah? I could have swore I saw that in the book of Psalms. So this is a constant, like literal, you'll see a literal, like allegorical interpretation of what that means to have it on your hand, has sign between your eyes and your hand. Because the between your eyes symbolically is talking about your brain, your mind, okay, your thoughts. And then the hand would be what you put to do, your hand, your actions. So yeah, Brother Joshua, that you hit it right on the head there. That's the actual correct interpretation of that. Unfortunately, the Targums are written by rabbinical scribes, so sometimes you're going to see things inserted into there like Tephilim and all that. But anyway, verse 19, and you shall teach them to your children so as to speak about them when you sit in the house, when you walk by the way, and when you sleep, and when you rise up. So basically, it's just saying from the time that the day starts to the ending of a day, you should be constantly being meditating on that and teaching it to your children. You talking about it. You should, there's other places in Joshua where it talks about let the words of this Torah not depart from your mouth, right? Okay. Verse 20, and you shall write them on the lintels. Now, this I believe there is a physical action to this, and we'll get to why I believe that after I read the whole chapter. And you shall write them on the lintels of your houses and on your gates. And not to get too much into it, instead of on, it should probably say you shall affix them to the lintels of your gates. And I'm going to get into why it should say that in a little bit. So it should be, you're actually affixing them. You're not literally writing them on a doorpost. You're affixing them to the doorpost. That your days may be long and the days of your children upon the land, which Yahuwah swore to your fathers to give them as the days of heaven upon the earth. And it shall come to pass that if you will indeed hearken to all these commands, which I charge you to observe this day, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, and to walk in all his ways, and to cleave close to him, then Yahuwah shall cast out all these nations before you, and you shall inherit great nations and stronger than yourselves. Every place wherein the sole of your foot shall tread shall be yours, from the wilderness and the Antilopenus, and from the great river, the river Euphrates, even as far as the West Sea shall be your coast. No one shall stand before you, and Yahuwah your Elohim will put the fear of you on the face of all the land on which you shall tread, as he told you. Which actually he keeps that promise and actually does to Jericho in the book of Joshua. Behold, I set before you this day the baraka and the curse. The baraka, if you hearken to the commands of Yahuwah your Elohim, all that I command you this day, and the curse if you do not hearken to the commands of Yahuwah Elohim, as many as I command you this day, and you wander from the way which I have commanded you, having gone to serve other mighty ones which you know not. And it shall come to pass, when Yahuwah your Elohim shall have brought you into the land into which you go over to inherit, then you shall put barakas on Mount Gerizim, and the curse on Mount Ebal. Lo, are not these beyond Jordan, behind westward in the land of Canaan, which lies westward near Gilgal by the high oak? Interesting. For you were passing over the Jordan to go into inherit the land which Yahuwah our Elohim gives you to inherit always, and you shall dwell in it. Okay. You shall take heed to do all his ordinances, these judgments, as many as I set before you today. All right, so we want to, before we go to our prophets portion, I want to address the writing on the lintels and why I believe you're not literally, it's not commanding you to like take a pen and start writing on your physical doorpost. I'm going to explain why when we look into the original Hebrew and Greek of writing upon, what it's actually talking about here. Okay, and also the Targums for reference too actually would agree with my interpretation, believe it or not, of what it's actually talking about. Let's see here. Where is it in this? Let's see here. Keep all the commandments. All right, so you shall live upon the land, you shall not stay. Right, okay. Houses. Okay, you shall keep all the commandments, you shall live upon the land. All right. Let's see. Which verses it talks about writing upon your, let's see here. Yeah, here we go. I got it. Deuteronomy 11:20. Okay, so we're going to look here, and I should have it on the shared screen here, but let me just make sure I got it here. Okay, so Deuteronomy 11:20. If we look at the Septuagint, the Greek of the Septuagint, upon, what does upon mean? Okay, all right. So this, we're going to look into the Strongs here, the word upon. Okay, if they would cooperate here. Epi, superimposition, place, order as a relation that is over. You are to write them over the lintels of your houses and of your gates. Now, it actually, more correctly, you should say over. Okay, so now we're going to go to the word for write in the Greek. Okay, to grave, especially to write figuratively, to describe, writing. Now we're going to go to the Thayer's Greek lexicon. To write, reference to the form of letters, to delineate in form of letters on a tablet, parchment, paper, or other material. Now keep in mind, it's saying parchment or paper, right? So that means if that's what the Greek word means, then technically it's not telling you to literally write this on your doorpost. Okay, it's actually telling you to ascribe it, to write it on a paper and ascribe it to your lintels, which, by the way, if we go to the Targum here, that would actually agree with what the Targum says. Okay, and I'll just show you what I mean here. Okay, so Deuteronomy 11:20 in the Targums. And actually almost every version of the Targum agrees with this interpretation of this verse. They all talk about writing it on parchment and ascribing it to your gates, to your lintels. Okay, so let's go here. Deuteronomy 11, verse 20. Here we go. And you shall write them upon parchment, upon the posts, and affix them to 3 places, against your chest, against the pillars of your house, and against your gates. So what it's saying is to give you, well, unfortunately, let me see if my camera will at least work somewhat here just to show you a visual means. So basically, like, take some paper, some parchment, all these commandments he's giving you, right? You would write them on parchment. Then you would they would probably roll them into like a scroll or something and affix them to the doorposts. That's what the actual commandment is, versus what we've, through our English translations of the Masoretic and other versions, have assumed we're supposed to physically write on our doorposts, which, doesn't really make sense, since mostly they were always writing on parchment tablets. So obviously it would make a lot more sense. What the Targum is describing as the context of how to apply that commandment makes a lot of sense to me. You're writing on parchment to affix them to the lintels of your door and all that. Which, by the way, I think there's another reference here in Deuteronomy to this commandment, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. I think the ESV does a good job. They actually give you a little footnote where to find the other verse for this. Yeah. Chapter 6, verse 9 of Deuteronomy. Okay, so 6, verse 9. That's right. Chapter 6 is the first initial commandment of this. I almost forgot about that. So let's go to 6, verse 9 in Deuteronomy in the Targum, just to give you a second witness here of how these guys would have considered how you apply this commandment here. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So 6, verse 9. And you shall write them upon the pillars of fixment in 3 places, against the cupboard, against the posts of your house, on the right hand of your gate, in your going out. Now, it doesn't say parchment, but you can pretty much assume it's talking about parchment, since chapter 11, verse 20 says parchment. So obviously, he's talking about writing them upon means affixing them. As we saw in the Greek of the Septuagint, upon means to be put over, okay? And affix them in 3 places. So you're affixing something written on parchment against the cupboard, against the post of the house, on the right hand of your gate, and you're going out. So hopefully that explains the context of what that commandment's talking about, and what I believe they explain it a little bit better than our modern versions of Genesis for the most part. And not the modern, the modern version of Deuteronomy. So I think a lot of it has to do with translator bias, or people not understanding what the word is there for upon. So again, let me see here. I'm just curious if the Jerusalem Targum actually for that particular instance has it a little bit more. Okay, so they don't even have it there. Okay, never mind. All right. Anyway, so that was Deuteronomy 11:20, cross-referencing with Deuteronomy 6:9. Okay, so I just wanted to check something real quick. And let's see, Deuteronomy 6:9 in the Young Kalos. You shall write them upon. Yes, so they just keep it as upon. Okay. Affix them to the lintels of your house, upon your gates. So again, the key thing to remember is the word upon doesn't literally mean on. So I think that's something to keep in context here. And for the word write in the Greek is grapho, which actually can be defined as to write on a tablet, parchment, paper, or other material. So just to keep in context, that's what the Greek word for write is in Deuteronomy 11:20 and 6:9. So just keep in context with that. But anyway, so all right, so we're gonna move on here to the prophets portion. Okay. All right, so prophets portion. Okay, so let's see here. I believe we're going to Isaiah next. We should be going to Isaiah 41 to 44, I believe. All right. All right, so my mom will be reading for us Isaiah 41 to 44. And let me just start a new recording because I don't want this to be too long. Let me just do stop recording.